I've never been to Traverse City, and so far I love the cold weather. I just love it. I went down, took a dip in the bay, and that is cold. A little colder than I thought, but I survived. I first went to New York. Now I live in Los Angeles, not so much to escape the cold, but that's where the movies and TV are made. But I love the cold. I love the snow. It's just I love the idea that you can walk out on a lake in the middle of the winter. And then they have the lake fishing, the ice fishing, which I think is kind of a cheat. It seems almost unfair to these poor fish. Okay, the lake is frozen over. We're kind of acclimated to it. Oh, here's someone dropping some food down, and the next thing you know, they're snapped up. And so but it's a big sport. I asked them just before the race, some of the dogs, what are the conditions? And they all agreed, rough, they would say, rough. And the thing I didn't expect, they made me get down on all fours and pull one of the weights to show, because a lot of the dogs didn't understand what they had to do. And again, I would look and the dogs would not be paying attention. They'd be turning around and looking. But I inspired a few of the dogs, and it was really great fun to see how some of the dogs just made a beeline for the finish line. Others just would stop, and they didn't know, what do you want me to do? They didn't know. They didn't understand. But they're all charming, and it was all fun. The funniest one we had a man who was supposedly in an iron lung. He wasn't really. He was a comic. But he had the talent of playing the piano backwards, upside down, which was a great thing. And they had a young girl on, a baby Irene. She was about 10 years old. She was on the same show. And this was one of the first shows of the first week. And when we came back from commercial, all you'd hear is, and there was baby Irene was her name. She was standing there, she'd unplugged the iron lung. And the guy was gasping for air. And Norman Lear, the producer, was on the set, and he came down, he says, we can't show that, we can't do that. Well, when anyone tells you that you can't do something, you start to laugh, and I laughed so hard. And it was this little baby Irene was tap dancing and holding the plug to the iron lung. And I've never laughed so hard, my stomach hurt. And Norman Lear said, we can't do it. So I think what they just ended up in the final, if you ever see the episode, baby Irene is just tap dancing next to the iron lung. And I thought it was very funny because Martin Mull referred to his piano playing style as that laid-back piano style. My mother was 105, and she told people she was 102. You know, you never stop lying about their age. And they would say, oh, Ruth, you don't look a day over 100. And you don't, that's, and she said, well, thank you. My favorite comics today. There's a young comic I really love. He goes by the name of Sebastian Maniscalco. He's very funny. I love Dave Attell. I love Bobby Collins. He's a name you don't hear of too much, but I hear him on comedy radio. He's very funny, very old school comedy. About going on cruise ships. Do you ever see the people on these cruise ships? Where do they come from? What are they? First thing they do, head for the buffet table. He's funny. Jerry Seinfeld is a master of comedy. Jay Leno. I love some of the new comedy groups. The Birthday Boys. Nick Kroll, very funny. Amy Schumer is very funny. I love her comedy. Jeffrey Ross. I was on a roast once. I roasted William Shatner. And it's just not my thing. I don't like to do roasts. I love to watch him, though. I'm a big fan of Jeffrey. I've become a good friend of his. And he could be a legend of comedy. He's a guy who has no boundaries, no boundaries. He'll say anything about anybody. And I've known him, he's the sweetest guy. He comes to our Christmas parties and our 4th of July parties. And one day we were someplace and we invited him and his girlfriend to come out to eat with us. He says, really? Do you want us to come with you? It's not a put on, really. He's just a very, very sweet guy. But boy, you don't want him to roast you. This is a tough question. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't be here. I'd be, I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably be in Paris or London in my townhouse. I think it's the hardest. I say, and I'm repeating what I've heard other, like Chris Rock said it. Work as clean as you can, because then you can get. Chris Rock said he's got a nice house. He said, but you got to see Ray Romano's house. You could put Chris Rock's house inside Ray Romano. Ray Romano will get a little bit off color, but it's a loving. You laugh with, oh, Ray. That's what I say. Try to be as funny as you can without taking that shortcut of going right to blue material. And you act with a little blue material, but do a lot of stuff that you can bring your mom to and your kids to. And you get a bigger, you see how much money these G-rated, like Frozen, these kind of movies. I was in a Pixar movie, Wall-E. They make hundreds of millions of dollars. Never going to swim in that bay again in November.